WADR, promoting dialogue. It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Senegalese President Macky Sall calls for dialogue and unity ahead of Independence Day celebrations.
Il nous revient de puiser à la source des anciens la sagesse qui inspire le dialogue
As
et la
we celebrate
concertation.
our Independence Day and the freedom it represents, we must also reflect on the history that unites us and our responsibility.
Burkina Faso's Patriotic Support Fund collects over $12 million to support the fight against terrorism. Liberian government donates $5 million Liberian dollars to Muslims for Ramadan.
Our total amount of money is $5 million of $5 million Liberian dollars, and total rice is 5,000 bags of rice that will be going to all of the 15 counties.
And a new WHO study suggests that around 17.5% of the adult population, or 1 in 6 people worldwide, experience infertility. Details of these stories and more coming up. Please stay with us.
Here is James Ajapon with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us. We begin the bulletin in Senegal, where President Macky Sall is calling for dialogue and consultation to preserve peace, stability, and national cohesion across the country. His speech served as a prelude to the celebration of the country's Independence Day today, Tuesday, April 4th. President Sall emphasized the need for unity and encouraged all citizens to work together toward achieving common goals and lasting democracy.
Il nous revient de puiser à la source des anciens la sagesse qui inspire le dialogue
As
et la
we celebrate
concertation.
our Independence Day and the freedom it represents, we must also reflect on the history that unites us and our responsibility to leave a lasting legacy for future generations. It is essential that we draw upon the wisdom of our elders and embrace dialogue and consultation to overcome our differences and work together towards a common goal. As a leader, I am committed to engaging with all the stakeholders of our nation in a spirit of openness, while upholding the rule of law and the institutions of our republic. Our natural resources are a critical asset, and we must prioritize their protection to prevent their depletion and the illicit trafficking that threatens our sovereignty. To ensure the safety and security of our people, I am dedicated to equipping our defense and security forces with the necessary resources to maintain control and be ready to respond to any threat anywhere and at any time. Let us work together to build a prosperous and peaceful future for our nation and uphold the values of our ancestors.
That was President Macky Sall of Senegal speaking there. Still in Senegal, the country marks its 63rd Independence Day anniversary today, 4th April 2023. The day is commemorated annually after the country gained independence from France on April 4th, 1960. The people of Senegal on this fateful day remember and pay homage to their heroes in their battle for independence. It is also a festivity of their rich traditions and cultural heritage. The day fills the air with indigenous music, which is a blend of vocals and wall-off instrumentations, not forgetting the traditional dance and special dishes that also make the day different and nostalgic. It is a public holiday in Senegal, and the management of WADR joined the celebrations of this amazing West African country. Speaking with WADR, a cross-section of Senegalese shared their views about their country's independence and the way forward.
As a country, we have so much to be proud of. We could talk about all of our achievements, the things we've built, but it's important to talk about our values and how they've been able to live on for over 6 decades. Senegal has always been known for its cultural heritage and the importance it's given to Black consciousness in Africa, and it's something that still lives on today. When it comes to the political side of things, we have a seat at the African table, and we've been doing our best to show that we can make a change and we have initiatives that will benefit all of Africa.
Some remarkable achievements that I could state, those are the train, the TER. I think that is a good project, and this has really decanted part of the problems of circulation in the suburbs. There was also the construction of certain places for certain disciplines in the field of sport, as the football, because Senegal is a big soccer nation. The employability of young people, because there has also been an improvement. If I have any suggestion to make, it will be mainly about democracy. Lately, it's a thing that everyone talks about because Senegal was an example of democracy years before. But now, this is a problem here. People no longer have the courage to say what they think and to ask their wishes for better Senegal.
I think my main suggestion for the state of Senegal would be for better communication, because I think a lot of times they don't necessarily communicate very well with what our policies are, with what's going on with the country, with how our resources are managed. And in that void, there can be a lot of misinformation and just generally not knowing what's going on with our country. And I think we could do much better in communicating what resources are available to us, what the plan is moving forward for the government.
Those were a cross-section of Senegalese sharing their views on the Independence Day. The Burkina Faso government says the Patriotic Support Fund, PSF, has collected over 7.3 billion CFA francs, amounting to $12.2 million. The fund was set up by the Transitional Authority in January 2023 as part of efforts to fight against terrorism. This was revealed by Abubakar Nakanabo, the Minister of Economy and Finance, during the inaugural session of the PSF Orientation Council. Oge Obereka has more in this report.
The Burkina Faso Minister of Economy explained that the resources of the Patriotic Support Fund are made up of voluntary contributions from individuals, technical and financial partners, donations and legacies, as well as other authorized legal resources, including from employees. He stated that the sum of $1.8 million was deducted as taxes, $5.7 million was collected as taxes on alcoholic beverages. Tobacco generated around $665,000 in taxes and more than $615,000 in voluntary contributions. At the time of the creation of the Patriotic Support Fund, the transitional government had set a target of 100 billion francs CFA or $164 million. The fund will support the operational costs of the volunteers for the defense of the fatherland in the context of the fight against terrorism. The establishment of this fund should contribute to the achievement of the first 2 missions assigned to the transition by the Charter signed on October 14, 2022. First, to restore and strengthen security throughout the national territory and provide an urgent response, and the second is the effective and efficient management of the humanitarian crisis. On Monday, the minister in charge of security, Colonel Bukari Zungrana, for his part insisted on the commitment of the transitional authorities to combat terrorism, adding that the fund is an existential step. Faced with terrorist attacks since 2015, the Burkina Faso authorities have increased counter-terrorism operations in recent days through offensive actions against armed terrorist groups thanks to new acquisitions of military equipment.
Oge Obereka filed that report.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
If you are just tuning in, this is Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. Remember, we are streaming all around the world on WADR.org. Let's get to Liberia, where President George Weah has provided $5 million Liberian dollars, along with 5,000 bags of rice to Liberian Muslims as they observe the fast month of Ramadan. Presenting the money and rice on behalf of Weah, Internal Affairs Minister Vani Salif said the donation is the Liberian leaders' way of identifying with Muslims as they observe the month of Ramadan, characterized by fasting and prayer.
We have come this morning to announce to the fasting Muslim public gesture once again this year, 2023, from our father of the nation, President George Manuel Weah, who usually, since he became president, he started identifying with fasting Muslims since 2018. Today, the president has made available some rice and soup kind, that is cash, that will help people to buy a little soup that will go along with the rest that will be distributing today. Total amount of money is $5 million. Of like $5 million Liberian dollars, and total rice is 5,000 bags of rice that will be going to all of the 15 counties. It's good that probably will break down the total that will be rice and cash that will be going across the country. We'll start with Bomi County, 350 bags of rice. The president made available, and 300,000 Liberian dollars that will go along with the rice. Bon County received 300 bags of rice and 250,000 Liberian dollars that the superintendent will be in charge to make sure fasting Muslims will receive. Nimba County received 400 bags of rice and 400,000 Liberian dollars.
That was the Internal Affairs Minister of Liberia, Vani Salif, speaking there. In Nigeria, the Immigration Service Command in Southwest Osun State parades Simon Nweke, who has been accused of trafficking teenage girls to various African countries. Simon is alleged to have facilitated the smuggling of 2 teenagers from the state to Mali. Our Abuja correspondent, Usman Umar, tells us more.
The suspect was paraded by the Nigeria Immigration Service in Osogbo, Osun State, for allegedly trafficking young girls to Mali for prostitution. According to the Osun State Controller of Nigeria Immigration Service, Bewaji Abolukwe, the suspect was apprehended on March 29, 2023. The victims were reportedly exported unknowingly to Mali, and the suspect allegedly received 50,000 naira for each of the girls.
We are definitely against smuggling of persons, and we learned through the investigation that Mr. Nweke collected money over the heads of these children, and he didn't tell them what they were going to do in Mali. We later found out that the girls were exported for prostituting business, and this is what we are kicking against.
Abolukwe stated that the Nigeria Immigration Service is making efforts to repatriate the girls.
We have been conducting a series of investigations on the girls. On the part of the girls, we reached out to our embassies in Mali, Bamako, and the children were still with one NGO organization, RAPA, in Mali. We reached out to the embassy, and the embassy said we should direct the NGO to move the children to the embassy so that they will be transported back to the country.
The suspect, Nweke Simon, denied allegation that he sold the girls, claiming that he only helped them to get to Mali to meet someone named Hajia. Simon was handed over to the officials of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, for prosecution. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar, reporting from Abuja.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Senegal's President Macky Sall calls for dialogue and unity ahead of Independence Day celebrations. Burkina Faso's Patriotic Support Fund collects over $12 million to support the fight against terrorism. Liberian government donates $5 million Liberian dollars to Muslims for Ramadan. And a new WHO study suggests that around 17.5% of the adult population, or 1 in 6 people worldwide, experience infertility. Still ahead, we have our newspaper review, guest interview, and some sports update. Kindly stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
If you are just tuning in, this is Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. Don't forget you can always follow our discussions on Twitter and Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. We are also streaming live on YouTube. And finally, to health matters, a new study suggests that around 17.5% of the adult population, or 1 in 6 people worldwide, experience infertility. The World Health Organization, WHO, finding indicates the urgent need to increase access to affordable, high-quality fertility care for those in need. Infertility is a disease of the male or female reproductive system, defined by the failure to achieve a pregnancy after 12 months or more of regular unprotected sexual intercourse. The UN Health Agency states that large numbers of people are affected by infertility in their lifetime, with a comparable lifetime prevalence of 17.8% in high-income countries and 16.5% in low- and middle-income countries. Dr. Pascal Alote is the director of the Sexual and Reproductive Health Department at WHO.
Infertility is an important public health concern because it can have wide-reaching negative impacts on the lives of the people affected. In addition to people's own fertility intentions, procreation comes with a significant societal pressure. Failure is often met with stigma. People with infertility often experience anxiety and depression, with ramifications for people's mental and psychosocial well-being. There is an increased risk of intimate partner violence associated with infertility, and relationships are tested. Attempts at treatment often result in financial hardship. Despite the magnitude shown by these estimates, 1 in 6, solutions for the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of infertility remain underfunded and inaccessible to many due to high costs and limited availability. The infertility estimates that we're launching highlight the need for infertility to be raised as a priority for universal health coverage. This means expanding access to infertility prevention, diagnosis, and treatments. The costs of fertility care are an immense challenge for many people, increasing inequity and creating impoverishment and hardship, especially for the poorest households and individuals.
That was Dr. Pascal Alote, Director of the Sexual and Reproductive Health Department at WHO.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Up next, we have our press stories from Monrovia with WADR's Darlington Pogba.
Welcome for today's edition of Press Review. We have with us 4 newspapers from Liberia. They are Front Page Africa newspaper, the News newspaper, the New Dawn newspaper, and the New Liberia newspaper. So those are the 4 newspapers we will be looking through for today's edition. We start off the review process with the Front Page Africa newspaper. Voter registration center invaded, and we see a gruesome picture of this Liberian national bleeding profusely on the Front Page Africa newspaper, along with the photograph of Senator Samuel Taylor of Grand Cape County. And we leave it right there. From the Front Page Africa newspaper, the News newspaper is next. Boaka favors Yombli. Inside source make revelations. And we see this smiling photograph of former Vice President Joseph Yoman Boakai and Senator Yombli Kanga Lawrence of the Liberty Party. She's been reportedly tipped to run as the running mate to the former Vice President Joseph Boakai in the ensuing October elections. Stay on the front page of the News newspaper. Kimbiyan meets U.S. Secretary of Education, the Foreign Affairs Minister D. Maswesa Kimia. We flip over now to the back page of the newspaper. Government makes huge gains in energy sector. Signs major due for electricity expansion. And we leave it right there. Stay on the back page of the newspaper. Cluster Limited inducted into Liberia Chambers of Mines. African Development Bank Vice President renews commitment to boost Liberia's private sector development. Here on the back page of the newspaper. Government launches Education Sector Review 2022 in Nimba County. From the newspaper, our next stop is the New Dawn newspaper with this bold banner headline. Supreme Court hears CPP case today. And we see the photograph of Alexander Cummings of the collaborating political parties and NEC boss Deviyata Brand Lasana on the front page of the New Dawn newspaper. Sub-Lee, NEC warns lawyers, politicians. Next to the back page of the New Dawn newspaper. Transport Ministry employees rally for fair wages amidst scoring living conditions. And we see the photographs of scores of employees of the Ministry of Transport. We understand they had a serious protest on yesterday, demanding fair wages. Our last stop for today's edition of Press Review is a New Liberia newspaper. Get registered to vote. President Weah rallies citizens as he completes voter registration exercise. France on elections violence. VP Taylor embarks on voter registration awareness. On the back page of the New Liberia newspaper, Public Works Ministry refused allegations of undermining National Road Fund boss. Surveyors Licensing Board warns illegal surveyors. With that, we conclude today's edition of Press Review. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you, Darlington, for that newspaper review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Our guest this afternoon, a Senegalese political analyst, examines the State of the Nation address by President Macky Sall yesterday evening ahead of the country's 63rd independence anniversary. President Sall, in a speech, called for unison, open dialogue, and a common goal toward nation building. Mamadou Cho, in this interview, will also assess the sincerity and readiness of the Senegalese head of state to commit to his remarks. But beyond that, 63 years after Senegal gained independence in 1960, how is the country faring on the economic and socio-political front? Our guest tells us more.
His call to dialogue seemed to be, honest to him. And this is the first time he's calling mostly the opposition, leaders to dialogue. We remember after his re-election in 2019, he did it. And, some leaders of the opposition, responded, and others declined to go to that dialogue. For this time, he is sincere, but it's, viewed from the opposition side. And the opposition leaders, I don't think that they will respond positively to his call of dialogue of President Macky Sall due to the current political tension with many of the supporters of the opposition in prison.
All right. So, Mr. Mamadou, do you think 63 years after independence, in terms of the social and political and economic spheres of this country, Senegal has been able to achieve much?
Yeah, indeed. And we have two parts. Starting from when we became independent in 1960, under the socialist regime for 40 years until 2000. So mostly President Leopold Sédar Senghor and his successor, President Abdou Diouf, they invested on human resources, meaning on education. At the time, when you look at our school, one of them, we have a very good educational system. And today, the example you can see when you go on worldwide, you can see Senegalese, occupying high-level position in international organization. Starting from 2000, when there was the first change in power with President Abdoulaye coming in. So President Abdoulaye and the current President Macky Sall, they invested mostly on infrastructure, because due to the fact that, for the 40 first years, that was not a priority for the two first president, but the two last, Wade and Macky Sall, they did their best. And when you visited before 2000 Senegal and now you visit Senegal, you will see these big changes.
All right, so today marks the 63rd independence anniversary. What would be your personal admonishment to all Senegalese on this faithful commemoration day?
63 years in a lifetime is quite, a landmark. It means if you were a human being, you retired from an active, life, and you're enjoying your retirement. It means it's a year of wisdom. But the problem is when you look at, our political landscape right now, there is no wisdom. So people, due to what we went through this last month with the procedures about this trial against Ousmane Sonko, people were really scared all around Senegal. So it's high time that, we are heading to a very crucial presidential election next year. So it's high time for those in charge, in power, and the opposition to sit down for the interest of Senegal, not for the personal interest, but for the interest of Senegal, and try to know that in a democracy, there is those in charge and those who are opposing. No matter what happens, those who are in charge will go to the opposition, and those who are opposing will come to power. So there should be gentlemen and gentlewomen for democracy in Senegal to prevail.
Mr. Mamadou Cho is a political analyst in Senegal. Here is Sankole Janko with some sports updates.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Ghanaian top-tier side Asante Kotoko's board has reportedly summoned the club's chief executive officer CEO Nana Yao Aponsa to explain the sacking of coach Seydou Zarbo without prior knowledge of the board. The club's CEO fired the Burkinabe Zarbo in March following a 2-0 home defeat to Madema SC. Elsewhere, the Nigeria Football Federation (NFF) anxiously awaits the results of the inspectors appointed by the Confederation of African Football (CAF) to inspect the stadiums and related facilities put forward in a joint bid with Benin Republic to host the 35th edition of the Africa Cup of Nations in the year 2025. Some of the facilities to be inspected and evaluated include the Mashoud Abiola National Stadium in Abuja, Godswill Akpabio Stadium in Oyo, Stephen Kessie Stadium, Asaba Teslim Balogun Stadium, Lagos, Samuel Obemudia Stadium, Benin City, and Amadou Bello Stadium. It is reported that the inspectors have already inspected some of the facilities in Nigeria, as well as the Stade Charles de Gaulle in Porto Novo in Benin Republic. And in basketball, Georgia Institute of Technology agreed terms with 20-year-old Ghanaian forward Ebenezer Donwana. The Accra native played for the last 3 years at the North Carolina State University before making the move. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
Thank you, Sankole, for that sports update. We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM, Banjul, and Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lufa County, and in Ghana, Royals FM 104.7, Wenchi. Inyas Bilimu has been on the console. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek for our Facebook coverage. Do interact with us via social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. At 1 p.m., stay tuned for the French Info Chevo News. My name is James Ejapon. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music, get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.